Okay, let's be honest. Confidence doesn't always come easy, especially in midlife. Between the career pivots, the body changes, and the whirlwind of life, it's easy to feel like we've somehow lost our spark. But what if confidence isn't something you're either born with or not? What if it's something you can actually build, one intentional step at a time? And what if reinvention isn't just possible at this stage of life, but actually easier because of everything you've already overcome? Today's guest, Karen Fabian, is showing us exactly how to do that. And trust me, you're going to want to take notes. Welcome to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Ruth Sukup, and here we'll talk about everything from the science of weight loss to practical tips for making your health a priority in the midst of a busy life. It's a little bit nerdy, a little bit funny, and a little bit revolutionary. So buckle up, friend, because it's about to get real. Hey there, and welcome back to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast. Once again, my name is Ruth Sukup, and today we're chatting with Karen Fabian, the founder of Bare Bones Yoga and the host of the Conversations for Yoga Teachers podcast. With over 20 years of experience in healthcare, movement, and mindset, Karen brings a unique science-backed perspective to building true confidence from the inside out. She's also the author of 3 books and a fierce advocate for helping women reclaim their power, especially in midlife. In our conversation, she shares her personal journey of walking away from corporate life to pursue a calling that felt more aligned. We also break down the mindset traps that hold women back, how to rewrite the stories we tell ourselves, and what it really takes to reinvent your life, no matter your age. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation, so let's get right into it. Karen, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, same here. I'm glad that we have a chance to do this.
I know. So let's dig into all the things. First question I got to ask, who are you? What do you do? And how did you get to be doing what you are now?
So my name is Karen Fabian and I live in Boston. I am a yoga teacher. I run my own business and my life today looks very different than it looked many years ago. So for anybody listening who can relate to that, or maybe someone listening who wants their life to look different than it looks now in any particular way, that's kind of my story. I started out thinking I wanted sort of the traditional go to school, get a job, have a family type of life. And, when I look back on that vision, it's definitely not something that resonates with me. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just not the life I'm living now. I spent time in my life living that life. And it really was this one day in 1999 when I went and took a yoga class that I realized this is what I'm destined to do. Teaching yoga is really my vision for how I want to live my life. And there's a little bit behind that. I mean, I had gone to school thinking I wanted to be a physical therapist. So yoga teaching really sort of piggybacked on that to a certain extent. I've always really loved working with people from sort of a movement, exercise, wellness point of view. So that was sort of a match. But in 1999, here in Boston, yoga wasn't very popular. So it wasn't like there were a lot of studios. So I wandered into one, took this class, and it was like the earth opened up. And I thought, I didn't even know this kind of job existed. And that really started me on a whole revamping of my life. And I quit my corporate job after creating a plan. I didn't do it spontaneously. And I left a 20-year corporate career in healthcare. And I did it to teach yoga. And that started in 2002, my path as a yoga teacher, which has morphed over the years into entrepreneurship. I work for myself. I train yoga teachers all over the world. And I train them around not just the skills of teaching, but how to feel confident when you're teaching your yoga classes, which guess what is a human experience. And that's what really lights me up when I work with yoga teachers who primarily are women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Build up their confidence so they can do what they want to do what they love. That transcends the yoga piece. So that's what I do now, and I absolutely love it. And I feel like I am 100% living what I was destined to do.
I love that so much. So can I ask, how old were you when you kind of had this whole transformation?
Yeah, so I'm 60, so whatever 60 to 1999. I was probably in my early
Yeah.
30s or whatever.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I had had enough living that I was married and divorced. I was working for 20 years. I had graduated both undergrad and had a master's degree. So I had sort of thought I was on a path there. And it was probably my early 30s when I took this class, and I mean, I would definitely describe it as an epiphany. And
Yeah.
that
You had never done yoga
started,
before.
I had never done it before. No. And I actually went on the recommendation of a friend who was a guy who was using yoga in his bodybuilding routines. He was a professional bodybuilder. When he would
Yeah.
perform on stage, he would integrate yoga poses. And he said, "Come to this class. It's really hard. I think you'll love it." And when I went in and took it, and I was looking at the teacher and experiencing my body, I thought, this is wellness and health and physical therapy and mindfulness and exercise and strength build. It was all these things in one. And
Yeah.
like I said, I thought, wow, I didn't even know this was, like, I knew of yoga, but the experience of watching a teacher, I thought this is definitely what I want to do.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you went to this yoga class and didn't just experience it as like, oh my gosh, I love yoga. It was instantly the experience of, oh my gosh, I'm going to teach yoga, which is not
Yeah.
like a lot of people love yoga, right? But don't have, I love yoga, but I would never want to teach it like that. I can't even imagine that like transferring and then
Yeah.
to give up your career and change your whole
Yeah.
life. Like that's a pretty big epiphany.
Yeah, I mean, I left a six-figure corporate job, and after, I mean, I didn't do it overnight, but I planned out how was I going to do this. Sold my house in not really the suburbs of Boston, but it was a house in Boston, which obviously is a little different. Most of us live in apartments and things like that. But I sold my house and I moved closer to the studio. I bought a condo in a neighborhood in Boston, and I actually started a personal chef business on the side to sort of make up for the difference in my income until I built up my teaching schedule. And yeah, that became, kind of my new lifestyle, and it's morphed several times along the way. I mean, as you know, as an entrepreneur, the entrepreneurship journey is definitely one of personal growth, and you really need to keep your eye out to how do I want to pivot? How do I want to change? What do I need to do to build a sustainable business? And that has changed a lot. And certainly for me, the pandemic changed my lifestyle a lot because overnight, 50% of my business completely shut down because we weren't teaching people in person. But
Right.
luckily, I had already built up a whole online side of my business where I was training teachers. So I ramped that up. And so, what my business looks like now, what my life looks like now as an entrepreneur yoga teacher is different even from 2020, March 15th. That
Yeah.
was a big shift as well.
I can see that. That's so you talk a lot about confidence. Then obviously that's what you're teaching other teachers how to be more confident. So what is it that brings that kind of confidence? Because I can imagine people listening to this right now because I hear this all the time. I coach and mentor a lot of women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, which is a time of life where you kind of lose a little bit of yourself, right? It's
Mm,
like everything's shifting, especially if you've been raising kids for 20 years and now
mhm,
your kids are out of the house and suddenly like a lot of women will say to me like I don't know who I am. I don't know what I
mm,
want. I just want to want something. I don't know how to figure this out. And then also they come to me because they want to lose weight and get healthy, right? But they've lost that piece of themselves, that even the belief in themselves that they even can do it because they've tried and failed so many
mm.
times. and like just have almost lost that hope that change is actually possible. Now, listening to you talk, right? Like you're you've not only reinvented yourself multiple times, you're
Yeah.
continuing to do it. And so how do you get that? How do you get from I don't believe in myself and I don't even know what I want to here's what I want and I'm going to go out and get it.
Yeah. So I think part of it, and this is going to sound kind of crazy, but just in hearing you react to hearing me, it sort of popped an idea in my head. And I actually haven't thought of it in this way before, but I think it is inherently part of the process, which is sometimes there, in order to get where you want to go, there's a moving through the resistance and moving through it anyway. And I think sometimes for people, they want first to feel motivated and good and inspired and then take action. And what I've found in my life, especially many times, is that the taking action happens even when you're not sure, even when you don't feel inspired, even when you're in doubt. And so the one thing I would say to people listening is those feelings of doubt or resistance or identity concerns, I'm not good enough or I'm not smart enough or whatever it is, it's okay to have those feelings and you can still start taking steps to move in the direction you want to go. So that's part one. A related thing, though, is touching on what you said. How do you even know what you want? And I think this too is something a lot of the yoga teachers I work with are getting into teaching from a transition, a transitional point, as you said, in their life. Either their kids are growing up and leaving, or they're thinking of retiring from their job, or they want to change careers, or they want to do something different. And they've always sort of had teaching yoga as something maybe they want to do. So a lot of the women I work with who struggle with their confidence are in that space and place. But the first thing that they have is they've identified this is what I want to do. So, along with what we just talked about, this sort of moving, almost moving through the mud in a way, is having a vision for what you want. And what I would say really helps that is just spending some time with yourself and asking yourself the questions to bring forth what is it that you want. And I know for a lot of people who have lived such busy lives, they don't often give themselves those opportunities. Most people say, only when I go on vacation do I walk on the beach and ask myself questions about where my life's going or am I happy in my relationship, things like that. Finding time to fit that in silence, it's where we start to really hear our intuition. And that's usually where those answers lie of what do I really want to do?
Yes. And I find also that it takes asking yourself multiple times over because you will lie to yourself the first few
Yeah.
times, right? Like you will self edit. I always tell people journal on that question for 30 days. Every day, same question, what do I want?
Mhm.
Because your brain will not let you answer at first, but the more you keep asking and repeating the question and forcing yourself to write something down, it starts to come out. It's
Yeah, there's another framework that I use a lot with people, and it's from neurolinguistic programming, which is sort of a framework for understanding how the mind works. And oftentimes, when we're stuck, it can give us the practice of NLP can give us some ideas about how to move forward. And there's this one concept in the discipline called the well-formed outcome. And it's really designed to help you with the kinds of things we're talking about. If you want to change directions in your life, or you're not really happy, or you feel like you're at a crossroads. And one of the questions in the well-formed outcome I always find so profound, which is once you decide on what you want, what's stopping you from having that right now?
oh
And I remember the first time I went through that process, and I actually use this framework in coaching women. It usually stops people in their tracks. And I've had many people just burst out into tears because it's in recognizing that I could actually be doing what I want with my life right now, but for fill in the blank. And for a lot of people, that question really brings to the surface the limiting beliefs, which most always are rooted in fear, but we can call them different things at a higher level. And it's those things that oftentimes prevent people from living the life they want. And, if we even think of, Stephen Covey's seven effective habits of effective people, and he talks about the concept of begin with the end in mind. So if we kind of think about when we're close to the end of our life, what are the kinds of things we hoped we would have done? What's the kind of person we hope we would have been? But now, if we're thinking about that in today times, we can start to bring to the surface these same things. What's stopping you from doing this now? And sometimes when I frame it in that way and working with people, they'll realize, oh my goodness, I have this identity as a, I don't know, fill in the blank, a shy person. And that's what's really holding me back from starting my own business or networking more or whatever it is. But it's not until they hear that question that it really brings it to the surface.
Yeah, that's so powerful. So, not just what do I want, but what is stopping me from having that right now? That's,
Yeah. Yeah. And I loved what you said before about journaling. When I work with people and a lot of what I've learned just in working with yoga teachers, and I know your listeners won't obviously all be yoga teachers, but the one thing I do just want to mention is the reason a lot of the confidence talk comes up when I work with people is because there's something about walking in a room and teaching some sort of like exercising type thing that can really bring up limiting beliefs in people. And there's something specific about teaching yoga that does it because yoga has this sort of spiritual side and historical side, and there's yoga philosophy. So a lot of the women I work with feel like, I'm not worthy of this. I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough about the history of yoga. I'm not good enough. So it seems to be this sort of template that brings up a lot of these insecurities. And I loved what you were mentioning before about the journaling, because when I created this confidence practice framework, one of the things I have in the 6-step process is self-inquiry. And that is such an important part. Just being curious about what makes us tick, what makes us do the kinds of things we do the way we do them. Even little things we might just think is a habit, why do we do it that way? And it's in that practice of, you could even call it mindfulness, that we can start to see some of the habits that we have are just ingraining ways of being in our life that might be part of the reason why we're not feeling confident or holding ourselves back from living the life we want.
yeah, so much so. So now I need to understand the whole framework. So
Okay.
can you walk us through it?
Yeah. So think of it as almost like a wheel with a center and the spokes on the wheel. So at the center of the wheel is confidence. That's what we want. That's what we want to feel. And I call it the confidence practice because it's a practice. I mean, some mornings you wake up and you feel like you can conquer the world. And other mornings you wake up and you fall out of bed and you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my God. And you're like, how am I going to get through this day? So it is a practice. For people listening who practice yoga, it is a yoga practice, right? We never feel like it's perfect. It's the ever-changing body and life and the way we experience the world. So the confidence practice in the center is confidence, 6 spokes on the wheel. The number one, or not the number one thing, but the first one is every day having some sort of movement practice to your day. Doesn't have to be yoga. Obviously, that's the place I come from, but I do a lot of other things, and I encourage people, especially women, we need resistance training. There's a lot of science there. So some kind of movement. The reason for that is because movement every day has literal biological changes in our hormones and our circadian rhythms and our sleep patterns. There's so many benefits on the level of how our body works that comes from movement. I'm not even going to call it exercise because I know people are going to be like, I don't like to exercise. Think of it as if you could take a pill that could just solve so many problems around health, it would be the exercise pill. But it can look like anything. Go for a walk 20 minutes a day, pull out your yoga mat, do a little weight training, whatever it is. So that's number one. Number two is experimenting and daily challenges. So I think one of the examples of this is, let's say you want to go see a movie and there's nobody that wants to go with you, your partner's busy or whatever it is. and you think I could never go to the movie by myself, but you really want to see this movie. And you just say to yourself, you know what? I'm going to do a little experiment. I'm going to take myself to the movies and I'm going to sit in a movie theater by myself and be open to doing that. I mean, that's just one example of how we can break the cycle of how we look at the world and how we look at ourselves. And it's through doing these little experiments that we start to chip away and dismantle some of the limiting beliefs that we have.
I love the idea of
Number,
calling it experiment.
yes,
So
yeah, because it's no pressure.
non-committal. Yeah. And experiments fail all the time. So maybe this will fail, but it's no big deal.
Yes. Yes. And and I know a lot of, the support you give women around fitness and health and nutrition. I mean, we all have experience saying, I'm going to commit to not eating sugar for 30 days and just the pressure of that. But when we call it an experiment, I'm going to experiment for the next 30 days with being the kind of person who doesn't need sugar, doesn't want sugar. But now I'm saying there's just a curiosity to it, right? It's just a lightness.
Yes.
Number 3 is self-inquiry. And this sort of ties into the journaling you were talking about before. Self-inquiry to me is, again, this level of curiosity about why do I do the things I do, and having that awareness as you're moving through your day, moving through your week, especially when you're the kind of person you were talking about before who wants to change. If we have this level of self-inquiry, we journal, we ask ourselves, why am I doing it this way? We can sort of operate in a way that's sort of a growth mindset. There's a really good book by Carol Dweck. I think it's literally called The Growth Mindset. And there's sort of these two paradigms, growth or fixed, right? And so this kind of goes in sync with that. I have a growth mindset. I'm willing to be curious and be aware so I can change. Number 4, and I know this word is going to maybe trigger some people, is meditation. I know right away people are going to say, I can't meditate.
So woo-woo.
Yes, it's so woo-woo. So just think of it as time in silence. And it can look like so many things that you are probably already doing, but you might not recognize them as opportunities for silence. So you drive home from work, you don't have anything on in your car. You go for a walk, you don't listen to a podcast or have your earbuds in. You take a yoga class and the teacher doesn't use music. You wake up in the morning and you lay in bed and you just bring your awareness to your body and see how that feels. You're awake, you're alert. So there's lots of ways. Obviously, the traditional sit for 5 minutes, deep breathing is a different model, but it's all under the umbrella of stillness, down regulation of the nervous system, calming the body. And I think of it too from the point of view of when we do that, it's almost like, for anybody that does any gardening. I mean, I love gardening and I love going into the garden beds and tilling the soil so I can then put new flowers in. Like this is the time of year here in Boston, we're doing that. And think of meditation as doing that. You're literally tilling the soil of your mind so that when you want to plant a seed of what do I want more of in my life, you don't have all these roots and rocks in there. You have beautiful, clear soil that you can stick that vision into and it will take root.
I love that.
So we got 2 more. Do you want me to keep going?
Okay. Yep. Keep going.
Okay, so number 5 is visualization. I love this one because I think about how many times have you watched some game on TV, athletic event or whatever, and the athlete that wins says, I saw this in my mind. I knew I wanted to do this. I saw myself. It could be anything. It could be somebody winning American Idol. It could be a Broadway performer. It could be anything. I think of the athlete because that's the relatable thing. There's no denying that the power of visualization is an important part of change. We have to see ourselves in that changed state so that it becomes something that we can believe. So when you were talking before about self-doubt, well, to those self-doubters, I would say, when you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is close your eyes and see yourself as the kind of person you want to be. What are you wearing? What are you doing? Where are you going? What's your day like? This is how we start to retrain our brain. And then the last one is healthy habits. I mean, I know you probably have a lot of things that you share with people around nutrition and exercise and mindset around healthy habits. I have a lot of specific ones, but I'll just kind of throw it out there and leave it open to the listener. Think about healthy habits that become part of who you are. I mean, this is what is so different now about, I think about, oh gosh, 20 years ago, how many times did we hear the word diet in the media and in conversation? And now I hardly ever hear diet. I hear lifestyle. And I'm so glad for that because it emphasizes that if we really want change to be sustainable, it needs to be part of who we are, our lifestyle. And so I think of healthy habits, whatever comes up for somebody, as what are the kinds of things you want to build into your day so your lifestyle supports the health and the wellness of your whole being.
I love that. I love that. It's so like all of it, the whole holistic nature of it. And you're right. It's all of it is a practice. None of this stuff is going to be nailed like right away. It's not going to change your life in one session. And okay, I've checked all the boxes. And I think sometimes we think we have to check all the boxes and do all the things. And now I'm going to feel good. But it is a practice. In fact, I just did a mindset coaching session with my TAS clients this afternoon. And that's exactly what we were talking about is the practice of doing these things and changing your lifestyle and no longer looking at, okay, if I check all the boxes, it's all or nothing. It has to be perfect or I'm giving up, right? Like you have to get away from that and go more into okay, here are the things that I'm going to continually work on. And if I'm not perfect, it's okay. Even what you were saying about the self-inquiry just occurred to me, right? Like that's a self-inquiry without judgment. It's asking yourself questions without judgment. Why did I do this? But not saying, why did I do this? Like, I can't believe how stupid I am, right? There's a big difference between why do I do it this way? And what's wrong with me, right? Those are two very different questions. And I think a lot of times we tend to go into that, what's wrong with me, instead of why do I do it this way? And I think when you can start to shift that a little bit, man, powerful stuff happens.
So what I have found oftentimes when people are hard on themselves is they have a very rigid way of looking at themselves and looking at the world. These are sort of the binary thinkers. And what I found also goes along with that is they were usually raised in a home where that was the way of thinking. And I don't necessarily subscribe to this idea that we have to go back in time and kind of drudge up everything from our past. But there's no denying that the early influences on how we look at the world, which usually come from our parents, help shape how we look at the world. And so I loved what you said before about curiosity versus this binary way of thinking. There's right and wrong. And some of that comes from just having compassion for yourself. Being perfect is an impossible state, and how uninteresting that is, right? I mean, so many things that go viral on social media are people showing their imperfections, and that resonates with humans because we are imperfect beings. That is our nature. And that's just a testament to we don't need to be perfect. Sometimes the imperfection is what builds connection.
Yes. It's so, so, so very true. I learned that years ago. I've been doing this online thing for many years now, and I've always written this weekly newsletter. And I have always would find, right, when I was telling about some disaster, or some stupid thing that I did, or some big mistake that I made, those were always the newsletters that I would get hundreds of responses back, like, oh, thank you so much for telling me this. This makes me feel so much better, right? People did not want to see my perfect life. They want to see the imperfections. And I think that really like changed even my confidence of realizing it's okay to share the not so perfect side of things, because that's actually what makes us human, and the connection. And then when you can let go of that little piece a little bit, it's amazing how freeing that is.
Yeah, it's not only freeing for us, it's freeing to the people that are interacting with us. I mean, this obviously comes up a ton in yoga teaching. People can go into their class and think, I want to teach a perfect class. But it's really when you go in and show up authentically that you build connection with your students. But even just in life, just those authentic connections are often made when you have the courage to really just be yourself. And that doesn't mean you're short-circuiting the things you want in life or goals or anything like that. It means that you are empowered and confident enough to show up as yourself, and knowing that that is really your destiny in the world, is to be your own unique way of being, so that other people in a way have the courage to do the same thing when they're around you.
I love that. So good. In fact, we'll end on a high note, and we'll end with that mic drop.
Yeah, perfect.
Karen, can you tell us how people can follow up to get, you have a confidence challenge.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, your confidence challenge, and you said you had another resource as well.
Yeah, perfect. I think the 5-day confidence challenge is a really fun way to start experimenting with different things. I took some time and mapped out a 5-day sort of self-guided experience. You can get that in the link in the show notes we'll include. And that's a way for you to start to get a little support in going out there and just trying on different things, doing different things, building those healthy habits. And also, obviously for anybody listening who is a yoga teacher, I have tons of content for that kind of person. The best way to connect with me is my website, Bare Bones Yoga, and that's my handle on both Instagram and TikTok. But I would say in general, the link to the 5-day confidence challenge works for anybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Karen. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom with us. Very inspiring story. And it was just awesome to talk to you today. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys, that about does it for this episode. Remember that you'll find the link to Karen's website as well as her books and podcast in the show notes. So be sure to check that out. And if you know someone else who's been feeling stuck, afraid to make a change, or just in need of a little confidence boost, please be sure to send this episode their way. Then be sure to subscribe to the podcast to be notified of future episodes, and I will see you back here for another new episode very soon.